Welcome back, Thousand Life fam. If you're new here, my name's Janaea, and this is Live a Thousand Lives. Today, we're going to be going over my October and November wrap-up. Let's get into this. In the month of October, sadly, I only read 2 books. The first book I read was The Sky Weaver by Kristen Cicilari. Put a picture up because I don't have the book with me. I listened to it on audio. I ran it through Copile. And for characters, I gave it a 9. For atmosphere, I gave it a 9. For writing, I gave it a 9. For plot, I gave it a 9. For intrigue, I gave it a 9. For logic, I gave it an 8. For enjoyment, I gave it a 9. And it came out to an 8.86, which is a 4-star rating. And I really enjoyed The Sky Weaver. It is the last companion novel to The Last Namsaro. Love that series so much. It is so good. I highly recommend you check it out. I can't really tell you what Sky Weaver is about without ruining what happens in The Last Namsaro. So, I highly recommend you check it out. It's really, really good. The second book that I read in the month of October was The Lanterns Ember by Colleen Hook. I read that physically. For characters, I gave it an 8. For enjoyment, I gave it an 8. For writing, I gave it a 6. For plot, I gave it a 7. For intrigue, I gave it a 6. For logic, I gave it a 5. For enjoyment, I gave it a 7. The total rating was a 6.71, and that was a 3-star rating. The Lanterns Ember is about this lantern who is basically like the guard of one of the, what are they called? Crossways? Four-way, I can't remember what they're called. But anyway, that you come to like a 4-way stop, and it's one of the places that you can go into like the spiritual world. I think it's called a crossroads. And his name's Jack, and Jack has been watching this same crossroads for many, many years. And all of a sudden, a powerful witch comes to his town by his crossroads, and everyone is trying to figure out who this witch is and why she's there, because witches are like a hot commodity in the spiritual realm, or the other world, I think is what it's called. I thought this was gonna be like how jack-o'-lanterns got their name. No, it was a really weird story. I hated the main character, Ember, and I loved Jack, and I loved, there's a friend of hers, of Ember's, who's mortal, and Finley, I think. And he was probably my favorite character besides Jack. And then I even liked the vampires in it. Like, there's so many different mythological creatures in this book, which was phenomenal. But it was kind of overwhelming, but yet underwhelming, if that makes sense. Like, the fact that there were so many was overwhelming, but the fact that, like, the way this book was written is kind of underwhelming, I guess. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought, but I did enjoy it. It was an okay read. So 3 stars in no way means that it's a bad book. It just wasn't the best book for me. So I still highly recommend it if you like especially like for Halloween reads or spooky reads, I would recommend that. So those were the 2 books I read in October. So let's get on with November. So the first book that I read in November, or tried to read in November, was Why Is Sex Fun? And I tried to read this physically, and I didn't rate it at all because I DNF'd it. It was awful. It was a very tiny book, and it was so boring. I read for an hour, and I only got 10 pages. And it was a small book. And it was just so dense and so scientific that a lot of it went over my head. And then it was kind of like, I get science, and I'm not against science by any means, but I feel like there's a lot of science that goes against my religion, you know? And this was very, like, they put down religion heavily in the first 4 pages of the book. And I was like, this is not for me. Like, and it wasn't even that, but like, even on a moral compass, I was just like, whoa, hold the phone. So it was a little weird. I DNF'd it, so it is what it is. The next book that I ended up reading for the month of November and absolutely adoring was High Voltage. And I had already been like halfway through this book, but I wanted to finish it. It's by Karen Marie Moaning. For characters, I gave it a 10 because these characters mean everything to me. For atmosphere, I gave it a 10. Writing, I gave it a 9. Plot, I gave it a 9. Intrigue, I gave it a 9. Logic, I gave it an 8. Enjoyment, I gave it a 10. Came out at a 9.29 and a 5-star. Does not surprise me. I absolutely love the Fever series by Karen Marie Moaning, and High Voltage is part of that. So it does not surprise me in the slightest that I would rate this one high. There is a vlog I will leave in the cards and down below where I sobbed my eyes out while reading this book. So you can check that out. I absolutely loved it, and I can't really tell you what it's about because it's the 10th, the 10th in the series. So just know it is very good. If you like fae and mythology and Ireland and all sorts of kinds of different beasts and magic and stuff, but set kind of in our world, I would highly recommend you check out the Fever series. Some people say the first book isn't that good. I loved the first book, so I don't know. I think this story is very, very good. The whole series, so check it out. The next book I read for Believe-a-thon. Oh, speaking of, Why Is Sex Fun and High Voltage, I read for the 1,000 Doors Readathon. So, the third book I read was The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane. Read this for Believe-a-thon. This is by Julia Noble. I listened to this on audio. For characters, I gave it an 8. For atmosphere, I gave it a 9. Writing, I gave it a 7. Plot, I gave it a 7. Intrigue, I gave it an 8. Logic, I gave it an 8. Enjoyment, I gave it an 8. Came out at 7.86, which is a 4-star read. The Mystery of Black Hollow Lane is about a girl who goes to a school. Her mom sends her away. Her mom's kind of a busy, like, kid psychologist author. And her mom sends her away to Black Hollow Lane School. And, well, I don't think it's actually called that. I can't remember what the school's called. But anyway, so she goes there and she realizes that her dad she knows nothing about, who supposedly died when she was young, that he used to go to school there. And people are acting pretty strange about the fact that she is her dad's daughter. And anyway, there's a whole big mystery. There's a secret, like, organization, society type of deal. It was very good. I cannot wait to listen to the second one. I highly, highly recommend. The fourth book that I read for Believe-a-thon was Tiki Tumbo. This is by Arlene Mosul. I listened to this on audio. It was a super short audiobook. I also listened for Believe-a-thon. Characters, I gave it a 5. Actually, I gave it a 5 across the board. So characters, atmosphere, writing, plot, intrigue, logic, and enjoyment, I gave it a 5. It came out as a 3-star. So I read this because I had read it as a child when I was young, and for nostalgia purposes and all of that. And I can't remember what prompt it was for Believe-a-thon, but if you check out any of my Believe-a-thon vlogs from November, you'll see what it's for. I put them all in there. It was an okay book. It was a 20-minute audiobook, and it's just about a kid who is not the favorite son of his mother or father, and the favorite ends up falling down a well, and Tiki goes to tell people, and people are ignoring him, and he ends up having to, like, assert his dominance and be like, come with me, he's in the well, like, type of thing. And then he becomes the favorite. It's kind of weird, but anyway, that's basically what it's about. The next book that I read for the month of November and for Believe-a-thon was the complete Alice in Wonderland works by Lewis Carroll. I listened to this on the audiobook as well. For characters, I gave it a 7. Atmosphere, I gave it an 8. Writing and plot, I gave it a 7. Intrigue, I gave it a 7. Logic, I gave it a 6. And enjoyment, I gave it a 7. Came out at a 7 even for overall rating, and it was a 4-star read, which I was very surprised about, because number 1, I'm not a classics girl, and number 2, Alice in Wonderland has never been, like, my favorite movie. I mean, I don't mind it, but it's not, like, a favorite of mine, and I really enjoyed the books, because I think there were 4 Alice in Wonderland stories in this complete collection or something like that, and I listened to all of them. But pretty good. I really enjoyed it, so check it out. The next book that I read in November was for Believe-a-thon, and it was The Bad Beginning by Lemony Snicket, the first in the series of Unfortunate Events books. I listened to this on audiobook. If you don't know, I'm obsessed with the series of Unfortunate Events show that Neil Patrick Harris did. Oh my gosh. I watched the movie with Jim Carrey, and it was good. But then when I watched the show with Neil Patrick Harris, I was like, oh my gosh. The movie does not compare. Like, no. The show was so good. I absolutely loved it. So I was like, I want to read the books. So I did read the first one for Believe-a-thon. For characters, I gave it an 8. For atmosphere, I gave it a 9. For writing, I gave it a 10. For plot, I gave it a 9. For intrigue, I gave it a 9. For logic, I gave it an 8. And for enjoyment, I gave it a 10. Came out at 9.00 even. And the rating was a 5-star. I did not think that it would be a 5-star just because middle grade and I don't normally mesh, but so good. I love this series. I love everything about it. So good. So I highly recommend reading the books and watching Neil Patrick Harris's series of Unfortunate Events TV show. Do it. Do it. It's really, really good. It's on Netflix. There you go. I told you where it's at. I told you where you can find it. It's on Netflix. go find it. Go check it out. The second to last book I read in the month of November was A Court of Wings and Ruin by Sarah J. Maas. I read this physically. For characters, I gave it a 9. For atmosphere, I gave it a 10. A 10. For writing, I gave it a 9. For plot, I gave it a 9. For intrigue, I gave it a 10. For logic, I gave it a 9. And for enjoyment, I gave it a 10. It came out at a 9.43, which is a 5-star. Now, I can't really tell you what this book's about because it's the third in a series. However, I will tell you this. I bawled my eyes out the last 150 to 100 pages. Just sobbed hysterically. It was so good. It broke me and put me back together, and I loved it, every minute of it. So I highly recommend you check it out, the series. Especially if you like fae and all that kind of stuff. I highly recommend it. And if you like bad boys but that have a heart of gold, check it out. Okay, so the next book that I read in November, or mostly read in November, was Cinderella is Dead by Kaylin Bayron. At this point in time, I have 83 pages left of that book. However, I am enjoying it. I would say that there are a couple issues I'm having with it. Because I read most of the book in November, I'm counting it for November. I don't have the stats as of yet, but overall, I think I'll probably end up giving it a 4-star, maybe a 3.5, 4-star. I'm enjoying the characters just fine. Don't have any qualms with any of the characters. The writing is great. The atmosphere is great. The plot is probably what's going to get the most decreased points, because the plot kind of seems fast paced but also doesn't make sense. Things don't add up quite right, I guess, in my head. So I don't know if that will be fixed or not. Intrigue. I am intrigued by this book. I think that it's very interesting and I can't wait to find out what is actually going on. And I have a suspicion, but I don't know if I'm wrong or right yet. Logic is pretty logical. I mean, there's nothing wrong with their logic in my opinion. And enjoyment, I'm enjoying it. There's nothing wrong with it. Like I said, I think I'll probably give it a 4-star. Editing Janaea here. It has been a while since I filmed this video, but I'm gonna go over with you what I gave Cinderella is Dead and what I thought about it. So, I really enjoyed it for the most part. The hard part for me was the pacing of the book. Some things that to me should have been slower to change or whatever seemed really, really fast paced. Our main character, Sophie, is at the beginning of the book is in love with this girl named Erin, and that's in the flap, in the synopsis, so you know that. And she wants to run away with her and get out of this crazy place that they live. It's a horrible. Women are treated very, very poorly. They are treated like property instead of humans. They are not able to defend themselves or do anything without a man's permission. They can't love who they want. They can't, it's pretty bad. But anyway, the part that really got me is Sophie changes her love interest from Erin to this other character like that. she sees the other character and she's like, I love you. And I'm like, huh? Like, what? Not that I don't think you can't have like the insta love thing, but it just seemed out of place and out of character for Sophie, so that was a little weird. And then the end was like really rushed, so in my opinion the pacing was off. But anyway, let me tell you what I gave Cinderella's Dead. For characters, I gave it an 8. For atmosphere, I gave it an 8. For writing and plot and intrigue, I gave it a 7. For logic and enjoyment, I gave it an 8. So it came out at a 7.57, which is a 4-star. So that's all I'm gonna say. Let's go back to past Janaea and end this video. Bye. Those are all the books that I read in the months of October and November. Please let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought about them in the comments below. I would greatly appreciate it. Also, in the description box, there are anyone I mentioned or readathons will be in the description box below. The videos that I mentioned will be in the description box below. All of my social media is in the description box below for you if you want to be my friend on any other platform and chat to me about some books. My Amazon wish list is also in the description box below for you if you want to check out the things that I'm interested in, or if you fancy sending me a surprise. Remember to hit the like button, ding that bell, and also join the 1000 Life fam by hitting the subscribe button. We would love to have you be part of our family. And remember, reader lives 1,000 lives, and so can you, so keep on reading. Remember to stay safe, be kind, be happy, be healthy, and always love one another. See you guys later. Bye.